What's up, y'all? We are here and excited to try out Assetto Corsa Evo. Been looking forward to this game for a minute, and I basically got the graphics set up, and that's the full extent of it. So, So wheel is up and running now. Switch this over to our ACC profile. Just use that as a baseline. So that's not going to work. So this is basically wanting me to try to do... I'm not liking this. Semi-cube is not wanting to be picked up now. That makes me nervous. This is always the trouble with the new games as they launch, is they don't necessarily just kind of intrinsically work. Gotta go through and get everything set up and talking together to each other. Understanding though is why this isn't even seeing the semi-cube wheelbase. If maybe just restarting the game might have this work. Maybe, hopefully, fingers crossed. Excuse me. game I'm really excited about, and so I'd like for it to be working. Granted, this is certainly, at least an alpha build. Okay, now it's picking up. Let's see. The steering, we're just gonna have that on the axis. So now we can go to the X29. Let's see, paddle gear up, paddle gear down. Shifter gear 1, shifter gear 2, shifter gear 3, four, 5, 6, and I only have a 6-speed shifter. So I'll have to reverse. Let's see. Got shifters. That's to force a specific TC. I'm not going to play around with TC cut yet. ABS setting, decrease, increase. Engine map decrease, engine map increase. We don't really need yet, I don't think. So this is going to be kind of goofy like AMS2, where the wheel has, it's essentially the encoders on the front of the wheel. They have 2 stages, so they have standard stage and then you push it in for depressed. And you can set it up so, like for ACC, have TC on the top left encoder, and then TC2 for ACC, or TC cut, however it would be in that specific car, is the same encoder just depressed and then turned. AMS2 doesn't like that. It likes to register the press as the button. And every now and then it'll catch the motion of depressing and turning as one. It doesn't seem like AC Evo, or it seems like AC Evo is kind of that same way, at least right now. I don't like that I don't seem to be able... We're going to discard this because I don't want to lock that in right now. So we're going to go back, and granted this isn't the most exciting part, but I want to have this all set up. Ignition I need to have done. TC decrease, increase I've got. TC cut I'm leaving. ABS decrease, ABS increase. Map decrease, map increase. ESC. Are they going to do ESC separate from TC? We're going to run without that for now. So this is something where it would probably make a lot of sense to have a separate button box, which I do have and I could set up, but we're going to leave this for now and just kind of run with what we really need. Let's see. Wipers. Because we're going to hit apply on this. So we're all good there. Gameplay HUD. So it doesn't look like we can do anything on HUD yet. For whatever silly goofy reason. Hey, what up, Space Wizard? How you doing, dude? Setup is going. Kind of just getting into this and trying to make this all work. Okay, so we're gonna set that up later. Can't do Academy yet. Let's take a quick look at what we have in the way of vehicles. Alright, so they break this out into liveries, which is goofy. I'd like to see this end up being a layered menu where you would click in and then choose this sort of thing rather than having, what, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Let's see, so 5, 8, 9 listings for the Julia. Like to see that go to a layered setup, especially since these are all the same car. So let's see. So we've got obviously the 695 V Costa, the Julia GT Am, which could be cool to try out at some point. The Alfa Romeo Junior, which I don't know anything about, the Electrica 280 CV Veloce Standard. That's an electric vehicle. Alpine A110S. So that'll be fun to try out here in a little bit. RS3 Sportback. Alpine A290 Beta, which that looks like it'll be fun. It looks like an electric car though. Let's see. M2 CS. S, which I'll be really curious to try and see how that feels versus ACC. M4 CSL, Camaro ZL1, which is the difference of this. These are all, yes, this is granted, you know, carbon insert, but it's all, I assume this is a performance rating up here in the top right, or some sort of metric of some variety. So what gets me though is, so these I would understand being a separate entry under the ZL1 since these are extreme. Essentially, this is an extreme performance pack, to my understanding. To my limited understanding. We got the 296s, 488 Challenge Evo, Escort RS Ghazi, S2000s, I-30Ns, Lotus Emira, Indy Cup car, GT2 Mercedes, GT3 Cup 992s, all 28,000 of them. GR86 and the Golf 8 Mark 8 GTI. So I think let's start out and just hop on in with a yellow 8. Uses hit route mix. Is that a little bit better? Let's see. I appreciate you hanging out with me, Space Wizard. Perfect. A lot cleaner. I assume I was referring to the stacked menus. Let's see, let's not do Pano. What can we do? One, two, three, four, five. Okay, yeah, they said they were launching with 5 tracks. I saw the roadmap for this, and I think they were saying Fuji was the next track to be added, which will be pretty exciting. That'll be a really fun one, especially I think there's a couple more cars coming. Either at the same time or in between now and then too. Let's see. We're gonna start off with Imola. Ooh, okay, cool. So let's do custom, automatic ignition. I don't really need automatic gearbox. I don't need pit limiter. I don't need. Okay, so we can't take off the automatic clutch. Oh, unless we take it off of OnStart. Okay, that makes sense. Automatic throttle blit. Auto headlights will leave on. Auto wipers will leave on. Not that it matters. Ideal line off. Stability control off. Cool. There's no apply button, so we'll just hit back. Okay, let's go and bump this up. Hit 60 minutes. Just to give us plenty of time to explore. Have some fun with this and see exactly what's going to happen. Oh, sorry, missed it, Space Wizard. I saw you said Laguna. I honestly know Imola better, so we're going to run with this for now. Let's see. What do we know about our tire compounds here? I would assume this is just going to be... Yeah, we'll run 30 out. Oh, okay. Here's our compounds. So an eco, road, or supercar, which I assume is going to be basically like an R comp. So we'll run with road tires for now, just to kind of get a feel for what this is going to feel like. I do know that, just offhand, stock suspension on an S2000. Certainly we could go more aggressive, but I just want to get us to an okay starting point. All right, so we've got our tires set up. I wish this gave me an exact readout of what this is as to whether this is PSI, which I assume. Alright, so we're going to apply that and drive. I'm going to set the keyboard down here. Toss on gloves real quick. And pray that we don't just fall through the pit lane like I've seen happen to some folks. Probably helps if you turn on the car. This has inverted my pedals, as best I can tell. Settings, controls, pedals. So the question now is, how do I... So this is still saying an... Wait, what? So clutch is Husingfeld Sims pedal sprint. Brakes are X input controller. Throttle and steering are X input controller. Okay, oh, so this is how you clear everything. So you have to click on this to highlight it, come up to properties, clear binding. That is goofy, to say the least. What the heck were they thinking? Okay, so now... Let's see. Okay, so now that I know this, though, I can go to throttle properties. So... generic. Need to make sure that this isn't going to try to put throttle on anything else right now. Okay. I wish there was some way where you could actually see the input of it as you're playing around with it, because even in when you go to properties, like, there's nothing there. Okay, so those two were inverted. Okay, cool. That looks good now. So it's got handbrake inverted to on as well. So let's see, where's my handbrake? Here we go. Properties. Yep, inverted. Some goofy stuff going on here, man. Some really goofy stuff going on. Steering lock is set to 1080, which is not how I leave everything. So I'm gonna pull this back down to 540, which I believe is gonna match what I keep this at. That's still going fast, but we're gonna give this a shot and just see how this goes, because it could just be that it's gonna be a little different on a road car. Steering immediately feels heavy. Ah, not quite. Driving with a clutch in this is honestly, it's been a hot minute since I've driven a clutch IRL, so having to readjust to it. this feels more kind of close to what I would expect the Eco tire compound to feel like. But like overall, the dynamics of the car, honestly, this feels like an S2000. Feels a lot like a Miata where everything just happens a bit faster, it's a bit sharper. Okay, so the rears are kind of cooked, which makes sense. Settings at some point. The left monitor is a little bit out of whack. I think ultimately too I'm trying to push this a little too hard. This feels really good. It feels a lot like an S2000 at a track day. You know what I am curious about? Nothing really for damage. No, I take that back. It doesn't look like it's modeling it visually, but it definitely is showing for the chassis. I've got the damage meter over to the right where all the tire and gear info and all is. And it's showing a lot of it right now. So they don't give you anyone manning the pit box. There we go. Let's get a pit stop there. Can I pause during? Yes, I can. What a good improvement over ACC. Doesn't just totally lock the controls. Let's see. I do have a round wheel. I'm just not using it. I don't have any sort of buttons on it or anything. Let's see. Round wheel. Sims gonna be, yeah. I mean, just off this, I am really looking forward to this. But I mentioned, I was talking to some folks earlier. I really, really wish. And I didn't know it's just not possible. I would love to see Kunos have some sort of like a tie-in or an agreement or something like that with some of the smaller like grassroots track day orgs, because this I think could really be a really solid successor to the original Assetto Corsa, just from what I'm seeing so far anyways. But I'd love to see them kind of partner with some grassroots orgs, things like NASA or SCCA. And you know, if we could get the cars for some of the spec series like Spec Z, Spec 986, NASA Thunder Roadster, those would be really cool additions to something like this, because this, I mean, this feels like I'm doing a track day in an S2000. It's great. I love this. I don't have to go and race. I can just go have fun, hang out with some friends in voice chat, and just drive like an S2000 on track. And especially depending what they do as far as the track catalog. So like if they can get like, let's just say Road Atlanta, like New Jersey Motorsports Park, Mosport, you know, a lot of the tracks that you would see track days at smaller tracks, things like Roebling Road, Autobahn, although Autobahn would be one that I would actually really love to see. AC has a huge community that lives off mods. Yes, absolutely. What I have heard up to this point, and granted I don't know if this was coming from official sources or if this was conjecture, was that the focus on mods for this is going to be shifting a little bit more towards DLC and approved mod houses, because as much as there are a ton of mods for AC, there are also a ton of relatively low quality mods. So I could see Kunos partnering with like RSS and some of these other groups that are putting out really nicely well done models and having them essentially as paid content, which is how like RSS and a few of those others are working now anyways. I could see them partnering with that. I think they might, at least early on, keep this a little more locked off into, you kind of need to be a partner in order to have mods out there. I don't know if they're going to release the toolkit aside from two approved, specifically selected groups or people or whatever the case is there. But that could be conjecture. I really don't know either way. I don't think any of us do, aside from Kunos and whoever else is involved in that side of things. But this is, I know I'm echoing what seems like a lot of people have said. The bones on this are good. This feels good, and this is something, granted, I still need to dial in some things like force feedback settings and things like that, but I mean, that's every sim. Especially on the SimiQ platform, you have to just dial it in and just kind of fiddle with it for a little while. I'm running just the base ACC SimiQ setup right now. It feels pretty good. Again, it's a little heavier, so I might end up turning the gain down a little bit. And there's a few things where I'm not quite feeling the granularity that I might necessarily want to. But like overall, this feels great. We're gonna go and throw a little bit more negative camber in here. Yeah, 235 sounds good. Yes, we do want to apply that. See, it's fine with me. Honestly, it's where people who want that content is able to do so. I'm not 100% sure I understand what you're saying there, Space Wizard. But I'm gonna hop back out now that we've got the supercar compound on. Oh, I'm so used to paddle shifters. See them partner with like NASA, SCCA, that sort of thing, because I think those grassroots classes, you could have some really fun stuff. And I'm sure the response is kind of just like, well, just go race like MX5 Cup, and that's fair, but especially with the customization option, I just think it would be cool to have those tie-ins, especially if they're already going to put in like a 350Z or 986 Boxer or something like that. So I want to play around with those sausage curves a little more because they don't necessarily feel to see exactly what we can do in terms of the customization too, as they start unlocking that. And just exactly how they do it, whether they do it kind of like Gran Turismo, where you end up with like sport, semi-racing, and racing parts, or if they end up going with like licensing stuff. Just really curious to see exactly how that all shakes out. Just had a big old freeze there. Now it's showing an output of 35 frames. Now we're back up to 90. Hovering towards 80 now. The sausage curves don't feel as pronounced as they ought to, I think. Man, with these supercar tires, this feels great. There's still a couple of spots where I think the car should really be letting the rear end rotate around. There's a big stutter there. Kind of understeering a little bit, where I feel like the rear end should be rotating around a little more, but you know, I mean, I could just be incorrect on what it should be doing. That big stutter. The thing is when it stutters, it's not like I'm moving forward, and so that's really weird. Curious, because this is where it stuttered last. I'm curious if it does it again. Doesn't look like it. So pit limiter works in first and second gear in the S2000. That's the extent of it. So that is interesting, though, that I'm having the stutters. Oh, cool. So it's just up, down, left, right to adjust your camera. That's neat. Honestly, I was pretty happy with the FOV, how it was. Let's see. So let's hop out of the S2000. If the one thing I was saying that you were wanting referencing content. Yeah, okay, gotcha. Yeah, it could, and that's true. If they're opening up that developer kit to associates, partners, however you want to call that, it wouldn't even have to be Kunos doing all that. You could get RSS or whoever doing an Acid Thunder Roadster, which would be friggin' awesome. And Space Wizard, I don't know if you know the Acid Thunder Roadster. It's an open cockpit, almost kind of like a dirt sprint car. But it's I want to say it's a Hayabusa motor, a 1300 inline 4. Ton of fun. Revenue stream, mod market. Yeah, I think the mod marketplace, that's something I've heard. We saw a couple of streams where that spot of Emma stuttered bad. Okay, so it's not just me then. That's actually just a game optimization, basically. Reminds you of a Radical. Yeah. Yeah, the Thunder Roasters, they're neat. They're a lot cheaper to run than the Radicals. A lot cheaper to buy in as well. But yeah, I mean, that or like Spec Z or something like that. And honestly, I mean, if they allow modifications and they put the 350 in the game, like, you don't really have to have a Spec Z car, because you could just build one, as long as you, especially if you just set it, depending on how they set the server controls up for like the regulation side of it, in terms of what cars are allowed, what modifications, any of that. There could be some cool stuff. Yeah, less aero than a Radical for sure. But they're neat. In general, a lot of that grassroots stuff, it would be really cool to see it come in. And I mean, on a certain level, I would think that would also help grow the engagement for those organizations, and I would think that it would be worthwhile for them to invest into it a little bit. But I certainly, I'm not in the industry. I don't have my finger on the pulse there. This is all speculation on my part, and certainly arguably not even good speculation. So let's see. So we know Emil is buggy and wonky, cattywampus even, as it were. We're gonna try Brands Hatch, and let's go with something else. Let's try a different car. Let's see. The Alpine could be fun. I'm kind of thinking M2, but Space Wizard, I think you asked me about the i30N. So let's go with that. See how this be. Alright, same settings as the last session. Now what I don't know offhand, so let's do this first, since we know the road tires are kinda garbage. Or we think they are anyways. Different car, maybe just... Whoa, so I can't even adjust rear pressures? That is yucky. Okay, so I can have +1 or -1 toe. Cool. We're gonna make this as unstable as we can. Okay, so this is gonna be flappy paddle, or not flappy paddle. This is gonna be stick shift i30N. is 0 or 1. So off on. Feels really good. This feels about. So I have obviously U.S. based, so I haven't driven an I-30 in. We never got them over here. But I have driven a Veloster, and it's been a hot minute. So got to test drive one when they first came out. Got to fleeing around the parking lot, and this drives about like what I would expect it to on track. Like this feels really correct, but again, supercar, the quote-unquote supercar tire compound. I'm gonna ham-fist it a little bit here. It might be a little forgiving on the front-wheel drive car, where the S2000 you hammered it really understeered bad. This one seems to still look up. Granted, there's a little bit more electronic wizardry going on this than the S2000, but I feel like this is maybe a little bit more forgiving. And you know what? Part of that. Oh no, I've got TC off. Thought I had TC on one, but I've got it off all the way. This is awesome. I mean, again, it's, certainly this is an alpha release or an early beta, depending on how you want to look at it. To answer your question, Space Wizard, yes, the sand does really slow you down quite a lot. It is a little bit lacking for content for sure, but I mean the structure on this is freaking great. I'm having a ton of fun just driving this. This feels really, really good. And knowing that there's more content coming out from Fuji, which I love, I'm really curious to see what other tracks they add in, though. I would assume, which means basically nothing, of course, that we'll get everything that's already in ACC. And I think I saw Coda was already announced as a part of a later iteration of the early access program. I would love to see what else is going to pop in there. Got a couple folks hopping in here. Let's see. I am not breaking the car, Robinator. The car is totally fine. Space Wizard, I don't know if you if you could hear me that much. That front wheel drive was honestly feeling, like Robinator just said, it's feeling really good. I was not having an issue with the auto blip as long as I actually get heel toe right, which I mentioned earlier. I haven't really driven a manual in a little while. A couple of times here and there, but so I just need to work on that skill set again and get that back. Engine's drowning out my voice. Alright, so let's go, and I'm going to drop the game audio volume a little bit. Thank you for the heads up on that, Robinator. Open world's going to be good. Unpopular opinion, I guess. I'm not really, I don't want to say I'm not looking forward to open world. I'm just not super psyched about it like everyone else seems to be. Like, it's a neat concept, it's a neat thing to add. Just not really something I find myself caring too much about. I will be interested to see how they implement it exactly. Could be good. Could be I could just blow away my expectations, and I eat crow and the open world is friggin' amazing. Absolutely could happen. It's just not a part of it that I really care about. Cruising be fun, just chilling. I guess. My thing is, if I'm doing that, I would just assume be driving an S2000 around Road Atlanta or Sonoma Raceway or Mosport. For me, I would just assume be cruising around on a circuit. Just personal preference. So, and even assuming that it's great and it's cool and it works really well, it's just not something that I particularly care a ton about. So, again, that just comes down to personal taste, preference, and what I'm looking for in a game. With all that said, I'm going to, let's see, we've got Pano. We're hopping in the M2. See how this runs. See how this feels. Let's see. This should be a flappy paddle car. Really curious to see how this So you still have to have the clutch to get this started. So we are going to play with FOV on this one a little bit. That's a lot better. like it. Go TC0. We're not going to push it too hard since we're still getting the tires up to temp. I say as I clip the wall. Okay, so this definitely has some understeer to it. Bit of a dead zone in the steering there where there's not much happening. I'm really curious to see what the customization looks like, because I think the S2000 could be a lot of fun as you start putting like different suspension on it and messing with tire widths and compounds and all that. I think you really make these, a lot of these more we'll call them standard cars, into something really fun, and especially opening up the ability to go and fiddle around with the setups with suspension. Suspension like damping settings and spring rates and all. I think you could end up with some really cool stuff there. Because as it is, the S2000 is a little bit understeery in a lot of places. Ooh. All right. It's not showing much for damage there, though. Let us go back to the pit lane. Just excited to play something new, something you can just vibe without being try hard. Man, I feel that. It's gonna be nice to just have something you can really just kind of hang out on. And honestly, I mean, the thing is like you can kind of just hang out on base AC. Oh no, not Gizmo. Gizmo, the Random Vandals mascot. Playing around with the monitor, he fell down there. Let's see. I don't need controls. I want vehicle setup. What all can we do here? Okay. Let's just go to neutral toe on the rear. I don't think there's a way to do too much with this. Okay, so slick or wet. Cool. Electronics. I don't know what the track conditions are. And I don't know how accurate that is anyways. We'll try ABS 2 just for giggles. Oh man, you can actually adjust everything on this in this one. Let's see, front right height. Just play around with this a little bit. So TC3210, we'll leave it on 1 for now. It has inverted itself for up and down have inverted, so we'll have to play around with that a little bit later as well. Yeah, suspension's definitely a little wonky. I should have gotten some kind of a bounce after getting it up on 2 wheels like that. Overall, though, I don't want to say this is necessarily better than ACC, but I will say this feels easier to hop in and just have fun with. At least just with this car. Obviously, the S2000 and i30N are totally different from what you're going to get in ACC, just as the nearest, or I guess kind of, well, not really nearest, but as the most recent game in this family. Or in this series. But the M2 obviously it came from ACC. It's in that game, part of I think the Challenger Pack DLC. And it's a car that's really well loved. It's kind of being fun. It tends to produce very good racing. And this is very easy to pick up, and it could just be that it doesn't feel too different from ACC, aside from the suspension, just kind of being able to do whatever and not complain. And it could also just be the fact that I'm not coming from a GT3 and then driving this and being like, oh wow, this is really different and kind of weird. Certainly, that is a possibility. That it's just a difference in, what my palette has been the last, 30, 45 minutes compared to what it normally is with ACC. But this is fun. It's pretty easy to hop into and just go have a good time. I'm digging this, and honestly, this whole game is I'm liking this. It's easier to hop into and just go and have fun with it. It's not so granular, kind of like iRacing is. And even like ACC can sometimes be. Although it will still come around and bite you. Still holding about 80 frames. I will say the sounds definitely seem a lot better than ACC. They still carried over the chassis sounds, which ACC did really well, but the engine sounds seem to be a lot better. You know, even if we're just talking about just this car as a comparison, this sounds a lot more correct than an ACC. Okay, tire pressures are in the 27s. I am going to have to figure out something about brake bias, and I'm hoping that maybe the input method is rectified with a later iteration of this early build or early access. For those who are just tuning in, the wheel I'm on is a GSI wheel and has the basically the two-stage encoders where you have you can have an input map for the encoder and then another one for when you have the decoder depressed, the encoder depressed. So like for ACC or iRacing, for example, I'll map one of them to control all of my traction control, so it'll be traction control and TC cut as well, or for ACC, TC1 and TC2. And then another will be ABS and brake bias. But when I went to go map brake bias earlier, when you depress the encoder, and I had the same issue with AMS2. When I depressed the encoder, it registered that depress as the ABS, or I'm sorry, the brake bias down. And I needed to really get the depression and turn, you know, essentially two inputs as the one function. Man, this is fun. This is relaxing. I'm really excited to see how the development of this game progresses. Because there's a ton of potential here. I'm really excited for, I think it's the third iterative update of the early access program for this, is where they're supposed to have the multiplayer functionality. Be really curious to see how that does. What I do think I'm going to do right now, not that I actually have to stop the car, but I think let's launch into an AI race. And I'm going to be a little naughty because I'm really curious to see exactly how this game is going to handle impacts, basically. So, because iRacing obviously has the famous infamous netcode, ACC is luck of the draw. Sometimes it's going to be just a gentle nudge and it's okay. Other times someone's getting sent to the Shadow Realm over just a slight contact. So I'm really curious to see how this game does. I think AMS2, from what I've seen, has kind of the best implementation of it, where you can have contact. I think they overdo it and numb it down, because you can do some really heinous things and still be okay. And so I'm curious kind of where this is going to fall in that regard. I just want probably like 4 laps at Suzuka. We'll start it at 12:10. That's fine. Let's see. I want to start from off in the back. Let's stress test this. Let's put let's put 17 cars out here. let's start at 90. I've got no frame of reference for what's going to happen on this. All right. I think this might be about the last thing we work on today. So I hadn't noticed it before, but over on the right monitor, it definitely skews a lot more than the left. They skew in a little bit different ways. So I will definitely have to play around with setup on this. Okay, so you got your little radar there up at the top. I thought I had taken Suzuka. Yeah, car doesn't get too upset over those bumps. Okay, so we didn't get sent to the Shadow Realm. Okay, so those bollards are solid objects, I guess. So do not try to cut the corner. So MX-5 Cup feels really good. There's definitely, it feels much more planted than in iRacing. Okay, so they're not totally solid, but they will wreck your race. Slowly making up some time here, but it is slow. Well, now we're not. Let's just hit restart on this. Okay, so yeah, impacts are a little bit wonky, but they're not terrible. Oh. All right. I kind of meant to comment on this earlier, but I do like that when you I'm curious whether whether just in the Miata where you get the OMP gloves. I know when we're in the i30N and the S2000, it was just bare hand with a jacket, tennis shoes, from what you could see. But with the Miata, you actually end up going into a full-on suit. I'm curious if that changes from car to car. Or what the dealio is there. Okay, so you hop into this and you're racing and just whoa, what the heck is going on there? So the AI is definitely a little broken at Suzuka. they all just cut through the grass on turn 1 and turn 1, turn 2. It's weird. Curious if they do this just on the opener or... Yeah, I'm gonna have to fix this FOV stuff. Very disorienting. Okay, well, I found out what I wanted to. So the AI definitely still needs a good bit of work. And granted, I don't think the AI was really ever a particularly strong point of ACC, so Kunos may just not do great on the AI driver side of it, which I don't know if that's really that much of an issue. Everything seems to be functioning okay. On even with multiple cars on track, wasn't getting any big stutters. Didn't seem like the frame rate was dropping too much. You know, granted, you know, specs on my PC are 7900X and a 4090, so it would be a little bit of an issue if I was struggling running anything. I will say I'm not thrilled that I'm running, you know, 1440p resolution and not even managing 90 frames a second. So I'm hoping that the optimization improves on that moving forward. You know, again, obviously, to try and view this as a complete game is a mistake, because at the end of the day, this is very much an early beta, a very early release, early iteration of the game. And so to try to judge it as a complete game would be totally unfair, both to the game and to Kunos. For what it is, I think it has a really strong framework. I'm really excited to see what all happens with this as far as development goes. There's a ton of potential here, especially with kind of like we were discussing earlier with the mod marketplace. Space Wizard curious if the casual clothes, yeah, especially like in an actual race setup. So I'm curious if that's going to be something they incorporate. I remember the last Gran Turismo game I played was GT6, so quite a while back. I remember though that back, I think maybe even as early as GT5, you could actually customize like the helmet and race suit. I'd be curious if they implement something similar to that in this, where, you know, granted maybe limited options on clothing, but if you can at least like pick different suits and like helmets and that sort of thing, or if that's going to be all handled through like a livery creator thing, sort of like iRacing with trading paints, or what exactly happens there. Obviously a ton of this is still up in the air because this is so far out from being a, you know, totally finished, polished out product. But I mean, again, I know I'm repeating myself, and I'm repeating what plenty of other people have undoubtedly already said. The framework's here. This is a really good indication of what Kunos is doing and where they're heading. I'm really excited again for what this is going to turn into, what this could turn into. And I'm excited to see exactly how they decide to approach all of this. With that said, there isn't a ton of content yet. I am curious. I know they were having some issues with, you know, like the Academy, excuse me, the online side of it is still shut down. They weren't able to get it working yet, or at least doesn't seem they've been able to. I am curious to see exactly what this part of it looks like. And what all happens with that. I know some folks early, or who got some of the earlier downloads, were having issues with the cars weren't all unlocked. I'm assuming that it's meant, and Kunos came out and retroactively unlocked everything. I assume that a lot of these are, once they get the Academy open, going to be locked away until you finish certain accomplishments within the Academy system. But that is speculation on my part again. But yeah, I'm really excited to see what all gets added in the upcoming days, weeks, months. As we move forward, I think they were planning on the final iteration of their early access being sometime in the fall, and then moving on to a full release from there. Obviously, I think, excuse me, that the timeline's subject to change, and we'll know more as they say more. But I'm really, really excited, especially with how good like the S2000 and the i30N felt just kind of driving around on track. This, if nothing else, this will be a very cool and very fun track day simulator. And with what I saw from how it handles with AI impacts from car to car, I think this is going to be a really good progression from ACC. And I don't see any way that we don't see, unless the online management side of it and the multiplayer side of it is just completely screwed up. I don't see a way in which most of the leagues, Sim Racing Alliance, LFM, there's plenty others out there. I don't see a way that they don't transition over to this away from ACC. Granted, they may still keep some legacy ACC content running, but I don't see a way or a reason, or a way, I should say, not to move to this. Because the physics of it, and granted, like I said with the sausage curbs in the well, I think the Miata as well, but the i30N especially, I'm sorry, not the i30N, the M2. Getting them all mixed up here. It'll get way high up on two wheels and then just come down and it won't bounce at all. So I think there still needs to be some work done to the suspension physics, because the reality is with how far over I was getting on a couple of those corners, there's no way it doesn't, when it comes down, bottom back out, and it'll, at that point anyways, it should buck back up a little bit. So it should bounce at least a little, and it just kind of goes up and then boop, and just sticks. Which of course makes it much more forgiving, but I'd like a little bit more of the hardcore realism on that, and I think this is just part of it being early access, is you're going to have these little things where everything's not totally fine-tuned yet, it's not all polished. I will say, I do really want to see and I mean, so ABS variant and base variant, you can make those two entries, but I do want to see a stacked menu. I would love to see a stacked menu. I think it'd be really good, rather than having each individual car and livery get its own entry here. And I'm sure that this is all something that'll be cleaned up over time, but this is what I'm nitpicking, is presentation and a couple of small physics things. But I mean, honestly, even if they left the physics as it is, it's not bad. It's not as kind of nitty gritty as I'd like, sure, but it's not bad. It's a really good base point to work from. So with that said, let's see. Know the driver customization, maybe do a casual fit as well as a race suit. Okay, gotcha. I hadn't seen anything on the driver customization, but that would make sense, just given the way that they kind of seem to be pushing the game in terms of where it sits in the market space for racing sims or racing games. This feels a lot like the Kuno's attempt at making a Gran Turismo or Forza competitor. I think they're going to approach it differently. I think they're going to approach it from their own unique perspective, and it's going to feel very unique, very different. I will probably have to try this on controller just to see how it is. Although I'm thinking I may do that as it gets later on into the development cycle. Because I haven't seen anything about how it's meant to be on a controller. I know when Forza was launching their latest motorsport title, they were making a big fuss about, oh, this is going to be really good on a controller still, but this is also going to be really good on wheel and pedals for all of our diehard sim guys. And I admittedly haven't played Forza Motorsport because I heard that and said, no way, it's going to be good at one or the other, and it's designed for an Xbox controller. It's going to be good on controller. It might be okay on a wheel. I just don't see it being great. And every person I've talked to who has spent a good amount of time in like ACC or even base AC, AMS2 iRacing, etc., what I would call less the traditional simcade games and more the traditional sims, every single one of them said it's playable. That's about the extent of it. And there are people whose opinion I would trust on that. Maybe not everything, but at least on that part. So I will be curious to see exactly how this develops for control side of it as well. For controller and how well it implements there. So with that said, chat, do you have any burning questions that I haven't answered? Or that someone else hasn't already answered? I'm going to take that as a no. Nah, you're good. Cool. I think this is going to be a good place to wrap this up. Again, this is just a very early iteration of the build. There's not a ton of content here yet. We explored most everything. Obviously, there's some cars that we didn't check out. We didn't explore either of the Alpines. Didn't explore the 992 Cup car, the Camaro. And I will say they did a good job of, like when I went from the S2000, it felt the S2000 feels different from the Indy Cup car, feels different from the i30N, feels different from the excuse me, the Alpha that I drove, which is a complaint that I've had about Automobilista 2 is I can hop from a late 90s GT1 car into a like LMP3 and then into a GT4 and then into vintage Porsche, and granted they react a little bit differently, but like the steering inputs feel for me very similar, and maybe that's just a factor of I need to go through and play around with force feedback more and dial in the settings. But everything here in ACE, I hop from car to car and it feels, as much as things might feel somewhat familiar, at least in the sense that car is car, there's a notable difference between like how that Indy Cup car drives versus the S2000. And I'm going to be really curious to see exactly how that develops. And well, in even the Indy Cup car and the M2 CS both feel noticeably different. The M2 feels much heavier. It feels much more kind of balanced and planted, and yeah, it'll step out and it'll fling around a little bit, but the Miata just kind of floats around. It had a little bit less grip there, and so it's really cool to feel how everything does feel genuinely different, and you can tell that you're driving a different car. So I know I keep going on about this and rambling at this point. I'm really excited to see exactly how this develops, where everything goes on this, what the implementation of everything looks like. I think this is a really good point to wrap this up, so we'll go ahead and knock this out here. Thank you for everyone who's tuned in. Thanks for everyone who hopped into the chat and asked questions. I think we're all really excited to see exactly where this goes. So with that said, until next time, I'll see y'all around. Y'all take care. Cheers.